Welcome to Mom's Life Made Simple, the podcast for moms who want to go from chaos to calm, from overwhelmed to organized, and to find balance between family responsibilities and personal growth. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen. Let's make mom life simple. Hello, welcome back to Mom's Life Made Simple after our summer break. I hope you had a great summer. It went on a little bit longer than I planned as far as podcast break, but it was just right. It was just what was needed. And I am so excited to get back to the podcast to share some things with you. We're going to talk today about what matters most. And the theme of today's podcast is what matters most lasts the longest. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But before I dive into content, I want to just share a little summer update. I had a good summer. We had the kids home and in and out really a lot this summer. It was interesting. I have one daughter who's out of the house and then 4 boys who are still at home. One little, he's 6, and then 3 teenagers, one who just graduated high school and has been so busy this summer, just in and out. There are days that I see him for a second, just high and by. And some days I may not have even seen him at all. And then with my other 2 high schoolers, they had summer camps, church camps and different things that they were going to. And so it was a lot different than summers past. And it was interesting to me to just kind of see this shift in our family. And families keep changing, right? As the kids grow, the seasons change, and it's really different. But we were still able to find time to spend together. We had a lot of good swimming days and time in the pool. We also had a lot of hard days this summer with emotions and health challenges and things like that. And so there was a lot going on in our family in that regard. But it was good to take a break and really focus in on family. One other big summer update is that, we had a family reunion in Arizona with all of my extended family. There's about 30 of us. I come from a family of 8 siblings. I'm the oldest of 8. And then all of their spouses and kids and my parents were there. And then my son that just graduated high school, we were able to go to Costa Rica and do a humanitarian project, which was super cool. Maybe I'll do an episode on that at one point, but it was doing construction. He's going into construction management in school. He's going to study that in college. And so we went down to Costa Rica and did a construction humanitarian project. And like you would probably imagine, most of the people doing construction were not 45-year-old women. They were young boys. Some of them were high schoolers. They were had all this energy and could handle a sledgehammer and a pickaxe like pros. And then there was me, but I got by. I did lots of shoveling and wheelbarrowing. We were digging trenches mainly to prepare for the rainy season and to keep the flooding out so that the water had a good way to go. And then we were doing some demolition work, some plowing, and it was really, really cool. I loved being there with my son, was awesome, as well as knowing that we were making a difference and seeing this beautiful country in our spare time. So that was an awesome highlight of my summer. Now, I was reading a book recently called Perennial by Ryan Holiday. And as I read this upcoming quote that I'm going to share with you, I read it and I just stopped. I was like, whoa. I can't keep reading this book. I have to just sit and pause and let this sink in because it hit me that powerfully. So I want to read it to you and we'll see if it hits you powerfully as well. People claim to want to do something that matters, yet they measure themselves against things that don't and track their progress not in years, but in microseconds. They want to make something timeless, but they focus instead on immediate payoffs and instant gratification. Now, this book it's a business book. It's about marketing, it's about selling, it's about offer creation. And he wasn't talking about the things that we talk about here so much, and yet I thought there was so much relevance. People claim to want to do something that matters, yet they measure themselves against things that don't. And like I said earlier, what we're going to talk about today is the idea that what matters most lasts the longest. So, what actually matters most? I think if I sat down, if we were in a room together and I asked you, well, what matters most? You would probably say similar answers to me. Things that matter most, your family, your faith, love, joy, those big things are what matters most. But people track their progress not in years, but in microseconds, and they focus on immediate payoffs and instant gratification. So the question is, how are you measuring yourself? Often we measure ourselves by if the chores are done, if the kids like dinner, if I yelled today, if my social media post got likes and comments, if my kid is mad at me. Those are the kind of ways that we as moms measure ourselves and we measure our days. When you go to bed at night at the end of the day and you think about how your day went and what you did, what are you measuring yourself on? What do you see as the measure of your success? What matters most lasts longest, but we often measure ourselves against things that don't matter. So this idea, if we want to do something that matters, then we need to change our measure of success. It's not enough to just know, okay, family matters most to me. We have to go deeper than that. For example, what parts of family life matter to me? What do I want to create in my family? What's the vision of my family in 5 years from now or 10 years from now? So I want you to think for a minute. If what matters most lasts the longest, think about yesterday. Maybe as you go to bed at night, you're already thinking about this, right? Like, okay, what did I do today? What was my day like? What one thing did you do yesterday that would still matter 5 years from now? Think over your day for a minute. You got up, you ate some food, you prepared some food, you helped your kids. What else did you do yesterday that's going to matter 5 years from now? Most likely, the answer is not much or nothing. There probably wasn't one thing that you did yesterday that's really going to matter in 5 years or 10 years or even next year, right? And there are three major things I want you to take away from that. Because on the one hand, when we see that concept, it can be like, well, gosh, then I guess nothing I do matters. It doesn't really matter. But there's a deeper concept here that I hope you'll understand. So let's talk about it. What are the three things that you can take away from this idea? Number one is grace. You can have a bad moment. You can have a bad day. You can even have several bad days in a row, and you're not going to be ruining everything. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have mom fails. We can laugh them off because we can know that as time goes on, those things will be forgotten. They'll be smoothed over. It won't matter so much, right? Often we get down on ourselves and we just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything wrong. I'm messing this up. And the truth is that we're all going to have bad days and bad moments, but likely those aren't the things that are going to be remembered. They're little blips. They're tiny little things, and we can look past them, and our kids can look past them too. So give yourself some grace, knowing that one mistake isn't that big of a deal. I know for me, when I am trying, and I'll talk a little bit more about this particular relationship probably, but I have a kid who there's been a rocky relationship with, especially this summer. And one day I was all summer long, I was just trying to work on this relationship and to do what I could to make it better. And I said something dumb, and it's so quick, those voices to like, oh, that was so dumb. Why did you say that? You ruined everything you've been doing all summer. Like that, just forget it all. It's pointless now. The relationship is over. And guys, it was a pretty small thing. But It's not true, and we can't listen to those voices. The truth is that there is grace. There's room for mistakes. Let yourself have a little bit of, or a bit of forgiveness for those things that we do wrong. All right, number 2, I'm going to start with a quote. As Will Durant said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." I love that quote. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. That's why we can give ourselves grace, because our bad moments are not the habit. They're not the things that we're doing over and over. They're just those little things that we get off track. As long as we come back, and this is number 2, come back to our solid habits. If our habits are supporting us, then we're on the right track. Excellence, success, doing it right is all about what we do repeatedly. It's all about habits. Why? Because what matters most is what lasts longest. And habits are patterns in our lives that last. When we get our habits right, we're building up what matters most. And so I asked, what did you do yesterday that really mattered? And maybe you did think of something. Maybe you thought, well, I said prayers with my kids yesterday. I would guess that if that was your answer, that you said prayers with your kids yesterday, that's a habit, that's something you're doing day after day after day. We can come back to number 1. If you forget one day, you can give yourself a little bit of grace and you can start over again and continue that habit, which is number 2, create those habits in your lives. So this is why I talk about and love and preach habits for moms. You are what you repeatedly do. So let's go back to that quote we started with from Ryan Holiday. People claim to want to do something that matters, yet they measure themselves against things that don't and track their progress not in years, but in microseconds. They want to make something timeless, but they focus instead on immediate payoffs and instant gratification. So how do you track your progress in years? Well, you look at your habits. What have you been working on this year? What do you do day in and day out? This is how you build what matters. To make something timeless, like Ryan Holiday says in his quote, you have to focus on the long term. That means letting go of some of the things that are fun or easy or pleasurable in the moment and doing what it takes now to build what matters to you in the long term. So for me, that means that I need to build a relationship that is going to last into the long term. Now, this is true in my marriage. This is true with my kids. This is true with the friends who are long-term friends who I want them to be in my life in 5 and 10 years from now. So that means that I need to show them love, put energy into that relationship now. That matters. It means that if I'm focusing on the long term, this rocky relationship that I've mentioned with my teenage son, I can show love to him now, even if he's not showing it back. It means that I can focus on building my business, even if it hasn't yielded quick results or I haven't gotten the results that I wanted quite as fast as I had hoped to. It means for me living in my purpose and taking daily actions to make progress on what matters. And it also just means that those relationships, heavenly relationships too, I would add, relationships with God, are things that matter enough to put in daily effort toward. Number 3, when you find yourself feeling like you aren't progressing, take a step back and get perspective. Are you doing the things now that will lead to progress over time? Are you measuring something timeless on immediate payoffs and instant gratification? So often we do that, right? We think, oh my gosh, I'm trying to build this business, this podcast, write this book, have this strong relationship with my kids, and I didn't see any results from today. Well, are you looking for those immediate payoffs and instant gratification, or are you looking for long-term results and building toward the future? I can't remember, maybe 6 months ago or so, my husband and I went to his Aunt Connie's funeral. And Aunt Connie, oh, I just love Aunt Connie. She was the sweetest lady. She was, I think, 89 when she passed away. And all of her kids spoke at her funeral, and they talked about how kind she was, how she supported them, how she cheered them on, how she would ask them to do chores around the house. And she had 7 kids. Ask them to do chores around the house, and she would never criticize the way that they had done it. She would just accept their job and be grateful that they had helped and move on. Now, when I heard that, that part stood out to me because that's not something I'm very good at. I often ask my kids to redo their crummy job that they did cleaning up the kitchen or whatever it was. But I thought, okay, that's something that I can create a new pattern at and let go of my old pattern. Because the truth is, Aunt Connie was amazing, but I'm sure she had bad days. However, what she also had was a pattern of love and kindness, a pattern, a regular habit of doing, letting her kids do their best job and accepting it as good enough. I bet there was a day in there that she asked a kid to redo something, but because over time, she mainly accepted their work and showed them love and was appreciative for what they did, that's what they remembered. And I love that idea. It kind of ties the other two together. It gives us perspective. What are you doing? How are you making progress even though you can't see it in the moment? Because you're creating a pattern of progress. Your progress might be very slow and very uphill, but when you look back, you can see, yes, I am making progress. I'm working towards something really big, so I don't get that immediate payoff or that immediate gratification, but I am making progress. So I would ask you, what are you doing every day to make sure that you're spending time on what matters most? It's very easy to get caught up in the little things. Life is made up of little things. Are your little things leading you to the life that you want to have, to be the mom that you want to be? I hope they are. If they're not, then you need to take a step back and do 2 things. 1, figure out what you want. And 2, create habits that lead you to the person who you want to become. Mom's Life Made Simple is my signature group coaching program that helps moms to do just that. Get very clear on what they want and take the steps to make it happen. We start up another group soon. Make sure, if you're not already, to get on my email list so that you can get all the details, the early bird pricing. There's even a special bonus this time around for people who book a call with me. You can do that by going to chanelnielsen.com/call. Get all the details. I would love to chat with you. And thank you for being here. Great to be back, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for listening to Mom's Life Made Simple. Need some help making your mom life simple? I offer group coaching programs using my 4-step method called the Mom's Method. This is a process of manifestation, organization, mobilization, and simplification that will give you the balance, progress, and joy you're looking for. Visit chanelnielsen.com or go to bit.ly/momlifebook to get your copy of my brand new book, Stop Putting Yourself Last. I love to hear from you, so reach out with your questions, your feedback, and let me know how I can help make your mom life simple.